Hi, guys. It's time to finish up a chapter on the human condition. When we left off last time, we were talking about screeners and non-screeners. And this is our ability to filter out unwanted environmental stimuli, whether it's noise or glare or odor or anything like that. And so those of us that can do that, we're screeners. Those of us that cannot do that, we are called non-screeners. So that's where we left off. That's where we're going to pick up today. All right. So the next thing we want to talk about is our locus of control. This refers to how we view ourselves and our opportunities. Our locus of control, how we view ourselves and our opportunities, is based in three areas, and that is it's in our belief systems, and our belief systems is not necessarily our religious beliefs. It is also our cultural and family traditions. Okay, so you can separate those into two different things. Belief systems, you can say they're our religious beliefs, but our belief systems can also be our culture and our family traditions. And then also, the way we were raised, the way we were mentored as children, has a huge impact on how we feel about ourselves and the opportunities that we will step into. Sometimes it even affects the opportunities that come to us, because sometimes we don't believe we're good enough for an opportunity. And that could be the way in which we were raised. Maybe one of our parents put us down, or whatever. It has a different effect on us depending upon how we were raised and how we were mentored. Now we're going to talk about personal space, territoriality, and crowding. So first one we're going to talk about is personal space. Personal space is actually an interpersonal phenomenon, and it does not exist without interaction. So you have to have people around you for personal space to even be acknowledged, for it to be there. If there's nobody around you, you have no need for any personal space. So let's look at personal space. So we tolerate less interpersonal distance when we feel strong, secure, or safe. For instance, if I'm very confident about something and I'm very confident about the friends that I'm around, my personal space, the area that is around my body, I will let people into that space, because like you guys would come up and give me a hug, I will welcome that because I can trust you. I know you. I know you're not going to harm me. But if somebody else entered that space that I wasn't sure of or I didn't trust, my personal space would be like, no, get away. It's farther distance away from my body. So we all have it. It depends on the situation. It depends on who we are. Again, what happened to us as we were raised and we grew up. Amy's going to have a different personal space with the person that molested her, that raped her, than she would with her husband. That's a given. Okay, let's go to the next one. We require more personal space when we feel weak, insecure, or at risk. I just explained that. So if we feel vulnerable, weak, like something could happen to us, we are going to put up a big shield around us. It can be smaller, larger, depending upon the situation or who is trying to get into your space. So personal space is a subjective experience, meaning it changes. It's not always the same. It depends on the situation and what is going on. Personal space is portable. It's a flexible territory that is relative to other persons and things. We carry it with us, and it gets bigger, smaller, depending upon people, situations, whatever is happening to us. It's a very interesting concept. All right, so proxemics are the distances between two or more individuals, our personal space. We have intimate space that is literally just 2 fists away from our body. This is a space where we will let people close that we love, that we care about, we'll let them into that very close, intimate space. It's space for your spouses. It's space for your children. It's space maybe for your best friend, but it's not space for somebody that you don't really know. The personal proxemics is a handshake away. Remember, I told you that when I first came to Saudi, that y'all came and kissed me on the cheek, the cheek thing, and I was like, "Ooh, whoa, wait! This is too much for me," because I was used to a handshake, which is a long distance between the two people. Very different, and that's cultural. It's very cultural. So different cultures are going to have different means or ways of their personal spaces may be different. And then there's a social space, which is 2 arm lengths away, which I call that's the handshaking space because that's basically 2 arm lengths. And this is the space that you have with people that you do not know very well. Then we have public spaces, which is when somebody is standing in front of you teaching or lecturing. That is more of a public type space. There's big difference between you and that person. So usually in that kind of situation, you do feel comfortable because they're away from you. You have your friends around you, or you're seated next to somebody that maybe you know, maybe you don't. But it's more of a lecturing type situation. Okay, let's look at another one of these graphs. Here we have what they call the intimate zone, a friend zone, social zone, and audience zone. Basically the same thing as we just looked at in the proxemics. Okay, so personal space is learned behavior that is culturally acquired over time. As you're growing up, you start understanding what this space is all about and who you let in and who you don't let in. And it results from a combination of personal history and behavioral reinforcement. Once something has happened to you, you will continue to react in the same manner as you always have from that point forward. Our personal space requirements, they're really interpersonal distance preferences. They vary depending upon our personality, our stage of development, meaning how old are we? Young children will sometimes run up to people and just hug them. It depends on, how they're taught. But some of them they're not going to come to you unless they know you. They can trust you. Animals are the same way. Most dogs can know people that they can trust and they not trust. It's very interesting to watch animals with people. Then our cultural and societal norms. If our culture is one of hugging or welcoming, or that's going to play into how big our personal space is. And then our physical environment. If you are in an environment that you feel safe in, your personal space would be smaller. You would let people closer to you. If you're in an environment where you do not feel safe, your personal space is going to be very large because you're not sure of what is going on around you. So that questioning would cause you to have fear. And whenever there's fear, that personal space is more than likely going to get bigger. In competitive settings, individuals normally choose to sit farther apart using direct orientation, meaning face-to-face. Think of this as being in a lawyer's office and you're there, or there's two different parties there, one battling the other one. They're not sitting beside each other. They're sitting across from each other in that conference room because they are competing with each other for an ultimate goal or to win the victory. Okay, so when you do this, you're sitting across from each other, battling it out basically. So competitive settings, across from each other. In cooperative settings, individuals choose to sit closer together using indirect orientation, meaning they're sitting side by side. You would relate this to maybe a couple that's dating and they go out to dinner, and instead of one sitting across the table from the other, they're sitting side by side because they're cooperating with each other. They're friendly with each other, okay? However, in everyday situations, when you go into a conference room and you're meeting with people, you are going to do more of a direct orientation because that way you can talk it out. The indirect orientation will support competition, but you're in those everyday situations, normally you want to sit and talk things through. The personal space involves an approach avoidance concept. So even in our rewarding relationship, we involve avoidance tendencies. Many times when you have a relationship, say if you have a really good friend, ever so often there's some times that you are angry with them or you're upset about something. In that situation, there's still some avoidance tendencies. You don't want to maybe have eye contact or whatever. Avoidance approach concept. Many times we don't want to approach certain individuals because maybe they've assaulted us or they've hurt us in a way, or you just don't want to speak to them for whatever reason. But sometimes we do not want to approach, or maybe we do want to approach certain individuals. Sometimes we do, sometimes we do not. Interpersonal discomfort results when there is a discrepancy between our approach and our avoidance tendencies. If there is a discrepancy there, or we don't really, maybe there's some feeling or something that we have against somebody, but we really like them, but yet we don't want to see them, that's where that's going to play in, if you understand that at all. Now, we have spacing mechanisms that are built in to interior design that we really need to understand. The reason we need to understand these is these help us give the people that use the spaces that we design their sense of personal space. One of them is the arms on the chairs. If you have a bench with no arms to divide the seats off, anybody can sit there. And if somebody sits beside you, you feel like, ooh, I've got to scrunch in so that I don't touch that person. But when you have an arm, it divides the space. There's no wondering, oh, am I in his space or her space? Those spacing mechanisms are very important because it gives us privacy, a feel of privacy. It's our space. When you go into a restaurant and you have dividers between tables, it gives the people a sense of ownership of that space. Even that the sound can't go beyond that. It does, but they don't feel it. Even the lighting over a table, when you light the tabletop, makes them feel warmer and cozy, and they'll open up and talk to each other. And the area around them is a little bit darker. It makes them feel alone, an intimate relationship, intimate setting. So these spacing mechanisms are very important for you to understand as designers. In this image, you can see that this male and female are spaced apart. There's some distance there between them. And normally, you're going to have that. Now, space between female to female are 9 times out of 10 going to be smaller. Men to men, it's still going to stay the same. Men to women, it's going to stay about the same, as you see here. Because men aren't going to get close to somebody unless they really, really like them. Where we women will get close to each other. I mean, we walk beside each other, we talk, and it's different with the men. You need to watch it when you're out there. However, both genders are more tolerant of invasions of personal space by females than males. So what I just said, the females can get closer to a man than a man to a man. And females to females, definitely. The female is tolerated more than a man coming in. All right. In this image, I want you to look at the seating or where the people are sitting in this waiting area. You can see on the front row the 2 women are sitting beside each other. Then there's a seat between them and the gentleman on the phone. And if you look back, it's the same way. The women are sitting beside each other. There's a man and woman sitting next to each other several rows back. But I guarantee you they know each other. There's no other seats around them. They would not be sitting beside each other if they did not know each other. And you can see the 2 people where they're working together. So they know each other, they're standing close to each other, but they work together. If you don't know somebody, you're going to sit by yourself. and you will keep that distance unless it gets so full that people have to sit between you and somebody else, and they will come in and start sitting down that way. 9 times out of 10, if it's not full, you're going to see people spread out like this because of personal space. Territoriality. Territoriality involves the possession and the defense of physical space, as well as the exclusiveness of use, the marking of it, the personalization of it, and identity of it. We will do this as the occupant or the user. So, territories provide individuals with reliable access to the social context they need. In other words, we have territories so we can mix and mingle. Or a beach blanket is marking your territory at the beach. And if anybody came up and sat on that beach blanket and you didn't invite them to, you would kind of look at them and go, you probably wouldn't look at them. You'd probably say, excuse me, that's my beach blanket. What are you doing there? What are you sitting on it? Because it's yours. You've marked your territory. And you can mark territory with furniture. Furniture layout is a great way to mark territory. You can mark territory with rugs. You can mark territory with balloons. Just the arch of a balloon or at the four corners, you've marked a territory. So territories are, like I said, they're for groups to come in together and work together or interact with each other. And they also allow for safety within that territory. We can, like I said, we can mark them through a lot of different things. Fences, directional signs, the way furniture is arranged, different things like that. So our territorial markers are the placement of an object or a substance to indicate territorial intention or control. So if that's our blanket we've put down there, we have control over that territory. Therefore, we can, if somebody comes on it, we can ask them to move politely. Personalization. This is how we mark our territories. For instance, all of the faculty members at the campus have offices that are basically alike. Same furniture, same everything, but every single one of them you go into looks different because every instructor will mark that office to represent who they are, not somebody else. So it's very important that people can do this because it allows them to have ownership of that territory. Now you can mark it with art, you can mark it with family photos, you can mark it with different things that represent who you are, but you will mark it one way or the other. The different types of territories. There are 4 different types of territories. One is primary, second one is secondary territories, public territories, and interactional territories. Your primary territories are spaces that are generally owned by individuals or primary groups and are controlled on a relatively permanent basis. For instance, this university would be a primary territory, the entire thing. Now, we could break it down into secondary territories. In fact, we could go really less than that. For instance, the interior design department would be a secondary territory. A secondary territory is less important than a primary space, and they're not usually owned by the occupants, but they possess moderate significance to them. If you looked at it like Dr. Issa and his board of directors own Prince Muhammad University, then we can also say, the interior design department, even though it's important to us, it's not as important to them as the whole of the university. So the university would be the primary territory. The interior design department would be a secondary territory. The public territories are territories that are open to anyone in good standing within that community. And the occupants, they don't have much control over it. The ones that own it have the more control on it. They're just there to use it in public territories. We could say at the university, the public territories would be like the Starbucks, the Jamocha atriums, the porticos outside. That's more of public territory within the university. Anybody can go and use them. if they're in good standing. And what I mean by that is, are they going to behave properly? Are they going to obey the rules? That's being in good standing. Interactional territories are territories that are temporarily controlled by a group of interacting individuals. I may say, I'm going to put up a kiosk and I want people to come in and visit and see what I have on display. I would have temporary control of that area for a period of time, and people would come in there and interact with each other and see the displays and all that stuff. So that would be an interactional territory, but it's temporarily controlled. So territories can be permanent, temporary, or temporarily permanent. A permanent territory would be like your home. A temporary territory would be like a hotel room that you rent for a night. That's a temporary territory. A temporarily permanent territory would be like my office. Since I've been at PMU, I've had 3 offices. I started out in a faculty office, and then when I was the chair, I went to the chair office, and I've stayed in there for 7 years, and now I'm back into a faculty office. I'm the chair now of graphic design. They may move me to another office. I'm not sure what they're going to do. So these are things that they're permanent as long as you are there, but they're temporarily permanent. They can change. 3 types of territories: permanent, temporary, and temporarily permanent territory. Territorial infringement. There's 3 different types of territorial infringement. You need to understand what this is about. So there's territorial invasion. This is when an outsider comes into your territory with the intention of taking control of it. That is an invasion. Think about an army invading another land to take the land from another entity of people. That's invasion. Territorial violation is when you have somebody's coming on to annoy you, but not really to take anything from you. It's only for annoyance. Territorial contamination is when somebody comes into your territory and paints stuff up and vandalizes. Maybe there's stink bombs, maybe there's trash thrown everywhere, and it's not to take over the territory. It's only for the contamination of the territory. Okay, I think we're going to stop there, and I'll do another one on the rest of this chapter. So we'll pick up with privacy in the next part. I didn't plan on doing 4 parts, but we'll just do 4 parts, and I'll pick up from here on the next one. Thank you, guys. I hope you're having fun. Stay safe, and if you need me, you know that you can call me at any time. I love you guys bunches. See you next time.